All right, so this is continuing on with this the prophecy about Simeon and Levi in Genesis 49. So where we left off was one, two, three, fourth paragraph. Okay, so let's continue on. It says, the first French settlers came to Hispaniola and established themselves on the island of Tortuga. El de la Tortue, on the northwest coast of present-day Haiti. The French settlers known as Buccaneers entered into the trade with the Spaniards on the mainland. Now let's see, we gotta see what these Buccaneers are talking about. Because remember, it said, be not thou united. So we gotta go back to see where was the division? Where did it start? As we went into, if you watch the last part of this lesson, you will see that the Spanish came to the island with Christopher Columbus. They came to the island and they called the Hispaniola, which means Little Spain, and they set up Santo Domingo. And then in time, the French came and settled on the island of Tortuga, which is located in Haiti. So already you see the French is on one side of the island and the Spanish is on the other side of the island. So the French took hold of one part, the French settled in one part, and the Spanish settled in the other. So you're already seeing the differences right there. That one tribe was being taken over by the French, and the other tribe was being taken over by Spain, by the Spanish. So we already see a difference there. Now it says a division there. Now it says, because remember, be not thou united. These French settlers known as Buccaneers. Let's go into that Buccaneers. Let's see what that's talking about. Now this is from a website called Britannica.com. Pirates, privateers, corsairs, Buccaneers. What's the difference? I'm gonna go right down to Buccaneers. I'm gonna go right down to the point. Bear with me. It was just here when I went to the site. Okay. As the term corsair is specific to the Mediterranean, the term buccaneer is specific to the Caribbean and the Pacific coast of Central America. And where's the Dominican Republic located? In the Caribbean. The name is derived from the French boucan, a grill for smoking meat, and was first applied to the French wild game hunters living in western Hispaniola in the early 17th century. That's the 1600s. They mostly sustained themselves by hunting wild game, but they did also commit piracy when the opportunity arose. Over time, the Buccaneers attracted a multinational mix of adventurers and scoundrels, and they migrated to Tortuga, an island off the coast of Hispaniola in 1630. The Buccaneers' primary foe was Spain, which formerly controlled Hispaniola and Tortuga and sought to expel the outlaws from its possession. So right then and there, French came on one side of the island, the Spanish came on the other side of the island, and you already see that the Spanish and the French was already beefing. They already had issues. They already had friction. Okay? Now obviously the tribes are already on the island, the tribe of Simeon. But it shows you that they already had the issues, the French and the Spanish. The Buccaneers' primary foe was Spain, which formerly controlled Hispaniola and Tortuga and sought to expel the outlaws from its possessions. And a Spanish attempt to drive away the Buccaneers by exterminating the game animals on the islands backfired, leaving the Buccaneers more dependent than ever on the raids of Spanish shipping. So the Spanish said, we gotta get rid of these Buccaneers. So when the Buccaneers came to the island, they will hunt wild game, right? They will hunt wild game. And also committed piracy, stole things if the opportunity arose. And since the Spanish had formerly controlled Hispaniola, they wanted to expel the Buccaneers, who were outlaws. They wanted to expel them. Get off our land, y'all outlaws. So they say, you know what, we're going to exterminate all these game animals that they're hunting and that they're eating to survive. Destroy their food source. But it backfired. Why? It says, a Spanish attempt to drive away the Buccaneers by exterminating the game animals on the islands backfired, leaving the Buccaneers more dependent than ever on their raids of Spanish shipping. So once they started to eliminate the game, in other words, the animals that they were hunting, well, guess what? The Buccaneers had to rely even more upon raiding Spanish ships. These raids in turn endeared them to Spain's colonial rivals, England and France, which offered various forms of support. Then England seized Jamaica from Spain in 1655. The Buccaneers resettled there. Colorful memoirs by Buccaneers such as William Dampier and Lion the Wafer influenced the depictions of pirates by the writers Daniel Defoe and Robert Louis Stevenson, and thus were important sources for the modern pop culture image of the golden age of piracy. Okay? And if you look right here, it says, these raids in turn endeared them to Spain's colonial rivals, England and France. So guess what? Endeared means like to love or like. So they started to take a likeness to these Buccaneers. Okay? So, and they said it was a multinational mix of adventurers and scoundrels. So people who were, you know, adventuring the sea. Look at that word scoundrels, if I could look at the definition of that word scoundrel. A dishonest, unscrupulous person, a rogue. An unprincipled, dishonorable person, villain. That's from dictionary.com and other definitions from Oxford Languages. So we're already seeing the difference between the two. Okay? Let's look a little bit more. Britannica.com, Buccaneer. It says, Buccaneer, English, French, or Dutch sea adventurer who haunted chiefly the Caribbean and the Pacific seaboard of South America, preying on Spanish settlements and shipping during the second half of the 17th century. In their own day, buccaneers were usually called privateers. The word buccaneer came into use after the publication in 1684 of Buccaneers of America, the English translation of De Amerikanische Zeerovers. I know I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Forgive me for that. I'm trying to breeze through this. By the Dutchman Alexander Esquemeling, whose work was a fecund source of tales of these men. The term buccaneer comes from the French boucan grill for the smoking of viande boucané, or dried meat for use in ships at sea. And also, if you look it up, it also goes into like making like jerk meat, like you know, I got jerk chicken. The French called their adventurers flibustiers, from the Dutch vrijbuiter, freebooter, and the Dutch called theirs zeerovers, sea robbers. The Spaniards called them corsarios, or corsairs. The earliest buccaneers were hunters in western Hispaniola, Haiti, in the early 17th century. They spread from there to the island of Tortuga, the French governors of which were liberal in issuing commissions for tax on Spanish maritime trade. So the French issued commissions for a tax on Spanish maritime trade. In other words, they were like contract pirates, if you will. The French had basically had them as like contractors in order to raid Spanish ships. Okay. Jamaica, after its capture by the English in 1655, also afforded a base for their activities. The early buccaneers were usually escaped servants, former soldiers, and logwood cutters from the Campeche coast in present southern Mexico. They exercised a democratic discipline among themselves when they went off on the account, electing their captains, marooning mutineers, arranging for the equitable distribution of shares of plunder, and drawing up elaborate insurance schemes for injuries suffered. Because they attracted to their ranks such remarkable men as William Dampier, Lion the Wafer. I read into that a little bit last time, so let me go into some more about the Buccaneers. Now you go to Wikipedia, you got the word Buccaneer, right? It says Buccaneers were a kind of privateers for free sailors, particular to the Caribbean Sea, right? During the 17th and 18th centuries. That's the 16th and 1700s, right? Now I want to jump down to legal status, because remember it said the French, they were like commissions. The French had basically given them commissions for raiding Spanish ships, right? So if you now go to the part that says legal status, it says sometimes the Buccaneers held more or less regular commissions as privateers, and they always preyed upon the Spaniards, but often they became mere pirates and plundered any nation. As a rule, the Buccaneers called themselves privateers, and many sailed under the protection of a letter of marque granted by British, French, and Dutch authorities. Let's get a word, letter of marque. A letter of marque or marque in reprisal was a government license in the age of sail that authorized a private person known as a privateer or corsair to attack and capture vessels of a nation at war with the issuer. So basically, they were being hired by the enemies of the Spanish to raid Spanish ships during the age of sail. Read a little bit more. During the age of sail, after capturing the privateers could bring the case of that prize before their own admiralty court for condemnation and transfer of ownership to the privateer. And look at that word age of sail. What's that talking about? The age of sail is a period that lasted at the latest from the mid-16th or mid-15th to the mid-19th centuries, in which the dominance of sailing ships in global trade and warfare culminated, particularly marked by the introduction of naval artillery, and ultimately reached its highest extent at the advent of the analog of age of steam. So we're already seeing the friction between the Spanish and the French. So this is just the beginning. Okay? And I want y'all to remember the scripture here. Genesis 49:6. O my soul, come not thou into their secret, unto their assembly mine honor, be not thou united. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they dig down a wall. So you're already seeing aspects of how Simeon and Levi would not be united based upon the nation that had colonized both parts of that land. The French who had colonized Haiti, where the tribe of Levi is primarily located, and the Spanish who had colonized the Dominican Republic, where the tribe of Simeon is primarily located. I'm saying primarily because you have members of tribes on the islands, but in other parts of the island, but that's their main land. So you already see who's being colonized by the others. So we're already seeing the differences. We're already seeing why they won't be united, because the very colonizers that took them over weren't united. So that's just the beginning. So with that, I'm going to close and say, oh, praise Yahweh, Shem Yahshua, double honor to your apology, GMS. I hope you learned something. Shalom.